Welcome to the ME channel, Metaphysical Entities. I'm your host, Greg Smith. Thank you for being here today as we delve into the fundamental principles of life and personal experiences. Our mantra is life is a mystery to unravel, but never a problem to solve. We realize there is always a resolution because problems are forever invented. Oh man, I got something for y'all today. Do I got something for y'all today? I want you to buckle up, put on your seatbelt, don't pass go, don't collect $200. I'm gonna give y'all something to think about today. Today's topic is about good and bad. Okay, when you think about good and bad, let's think about positive and negative. You want to go a little deeper than that? Let's think about God and the devil. Remember, we talking about good and bad. So when we're thinking about good, we think about positive. When we think about bad, we think about negative. When we think about God, we talk about good. And we talk about the devil, we talk about bad. Before I go into everything, I want y'all to ponder on something. I want you to open up your mind for something, these things that I'm about to say to you. I want to expand your way of thinking, right? So when we talk about good, right? Let's talk about thoughts. And I said positive and negative. So when you think about God, is that a positive thought? Ask yourself that question. When you think about negative, now is that the devil, right? Because they say God is good and the devil is bad, right? And the subject today is about good and bad, right? So we're going to talk about the deeds that we do, right? We do good deeds and we do bad deeds. I'm gonna explain that a little later, though, right? So every time you do a good deed, would you say, "Oh, no, you doing God's work"? And when you do a bad deed, you say, "Nah, I just did it. It's a mishap." But you don't want to recognize that that's the devil work, right? So what we doing? We putting positive and negative together, God and the devil, and my subject in good and bad. So because what happened is, right? We have two selves. And you be like, "Oh, Greg, okay, how we got two selves? You got a higher self and you got a lower self. You got a higher self that's gonna always want to do good. And then you got a lower self that's gonna do bad. And you're like, okay, oh man, how how is that happening? Right? How do that happen? Remember, in last week episode, 2 weeks ago, I talked about faith finally arriving in the heavens. Okay. And then I just said a few minutes ago about a positive thought and a negative thought. A positive thought can be uh, predicted as being godlike, and a negative thought can be predicted as being the devil. But nobody wants to be called the devil. Oh, you got the devil in them. Oh, they get people getting mad. But when you do something good, they want to say, "Oh, the God in them." It was the God in me that did this. So today's, like I said, I want you to put on your seatbelt because I got a lot in store for you that what I'm gonna talk about. So before I go on that, I'm gonna give you some examples before I go into that because I just talk about deeds, right? So when you let a person over in traffic, that's a good deed, ain't it? So that's the God in you, right? But when you don't want to let somebody over in traffic, so would you say that's the devil in you? That's the good. That's the difference between good and bad and positive and negative. You know, and if you want to go a little deeper than that, right? I told y'all put y'all seatbelt on because I'm ready to give you some Jews. Right here, right? Here's the Jews, right? In John 1:18, it said, no one has seen God at any time, right? So guess what? I bet you ain't nobody seen the devil evil, right? But they want to leave him out the way. They know he there, but everybody want to say, okay, this is the God in me, and I want to be like God. But if you have two halves of yourself, positive and a negative aspect of yourself, because everybody don't think positive all the time. They don't. I just gave you an example when I talk about sometimes you will let somebody over in traffic because you feel good, and sometimes you won't let nobody over in traffic because that's the negative thought. And we can't get away from that 24 hours, 7 days a week. You know why we can't get rid of that? Because we have something that's instilled in us called emotions and feelings. Your emotion and feelings vibrate on a different vibration. This is what you will have. You will have some emotions that's good, and you're gonna have some emotions that's bad. And the thing is, in another session, I'm gonna talk about the duality because everything is a duality. It's nothing in life that's not a duality because you're a spiritual being just as well as a human being. You know, because this carnal body is a representation of what's inside of you. When I talk about the intuitive guide. The intuitive guide and your intuition is in you, within you. And your representation of that is the carnal body that you represent outside of you. You know, even when this is what I'm talking about, good or bad, positive or negative, God and the devil. People will talk good about people and then turn around and talk bad about them at the same time. So now you just want to be recognized for the God in you. You don't want to be recognized for the devil in you. So when a person do find out you was talking about them, now you try to justify and put it in a godly way. How can you do that? Help me out. How can you do that? When you justified your actions and used a negative paraphrase about that person. Instead of inspiring that person or trying to help that person, you talked to them, you talked about them in a negative fashion. But when you're around them or whatever, when you talked about them in a good fashion, you want to feel good about it. You want them to feel good about it. But when you talked about them in a negative fashion, you wanted them to understand. How did that work? Help me out. If you know, help me in the comments. Please, please help me in the comments. Because when you be talking about good or bad, right? And the emotions again and the feelings, why is it that you could be happy at times and you could be sad at some times? How? So this is what I'm saying. You can't get away from that because these things are a part of you, right? People will get mad at me when they talk to me because I tell them this because I understand me and I understand life. What I'm telling you, as I say all the time, that life is a mystery to unravel, but never a problem solved. We recognize that there's always a solution because problems are forever invented. Right? I understand that it's a good in me and it's a bad in me that can arise. Right? I tell people that just what? I'm conceited, confident, and cocky all at the same time. And you like, how can you do that? The same way you can get mad at sometimes, and the same way that you can be happy at and sometimes. So how are you going to take anything away from you? You want to justify the good always in you. People want to do that. They always just want to recognize the good in them, and they don't want to recognize the bad in them or the negative in them. That's why on last week episode when me and Debo Wayne was talking, I wanted to talk about accountability. And when I told you about accountability, I told you I take accountability for everything that happens in my life. When I went to prison and the guy got on the stand and testified, guess what? I took accountability because I allowed him in my life. If I didn't allow him in my life, he wouldn't have got up there and testified on me. So anytime I interact with anybody in the world, whether it's you or anybody in the world, that any of these viewers, if I seen y'all in the street, and if anything happened while I'm with y'all, I got to take on all the energy that you have with me because I expose myself to you for these things to happen. That's what accountability is. That's why I'm talking about good and bad right now. And that's why what I do, I map my shows out the way that I want to address my viewers and the audience. And this is the thing what I'm talking about, good or bad. People not ready to hear this, but the truth is the truth. Again, you can't put an S in the end of it is no longer true, and you can't put a U in the and then it's no longer true. Because we have in the deeds and stuff that we do, we got good deeds and we got bad deeds. You got to look at it like that. You can't just look at it and say, this is all it is. You got a higher self and a lower self. You can't vibrate on the same energy all day if you living in a world of duality. You got up, down, back, forth, left, right, boy, girl, man, woman, whatever you want to call it. It's even duality in the universe, night and day. Yeah. If you wanted to go into a little more, then yeah, you have a duality in the day. But again, we talking about good and bad. If a person go within and understand and accept the dualities of good and bad, positive and negative within themselves, there's no person in the world, no person that I'm talking to now or who I'm not talking to that haven't made a mistake. And when they made a mistake, guess what? That's why they put erasers on pencils because nothing is perfect. I'm not perfect. I can't make a perfect podcast, can't make a perfect showing, but perfection is only within me. But I understand and I resonate with what's good and what's bad. And what's good and bad to me, not always going to be good and bad to somebody else because we all have our own principles. But within those principles, we need to recognize that what's good for humanity and try to be humane by inspiring and look within ourselves and ask, is this what we want for ourselves? Yeah, I'm talking about these people that talk about people. Oh man, I've been talked about like a dog by family members. Yes, yeah, family members, people outside of me, uh, people I embrace, co-workers, everything, everything that I'm going through, you've been through too. And this is what this show is about. That's why I study metaphysics because it's about all universal truth, you know. And I'm gonna get in that on another episode and on another show, and I'm gonna talk about the universal laws, the universal principles, you know, the things that we can't get away from. Like I told you, everybody in the world did this. Something told me not to do that. Oh, something told me to do that. You know. So again, I hope this message got through to somebody. I hope it resonated with the audience. And subscribe, share, like my video because there's a lot of people out here that really need to hear this because people know the truth. Everything I'm telling you, you already know. You just remembering it. I'm not telling you nothing you don't already know. These things, only thing I'm doing is refreshing your memory because you are a spiritual being first. Spirit knows everything. Everything. Only thing you doing is remembering. Again, as I always say, before I leave, don't consider nothing to be true by believing. Know it to be true by direct cognition. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next Sunday. Look, come. I got so much content, so much truth and downloads that the universe has been giving me for years and years and years. I'll see you next Sunday. Thank you again.